Welcome to the Jeff Miller Show. Each week, Jeff Miller of the Jeff Miller Consulting Alliance talks with Podcast Village host Charlie Burney about trends in business, consulting, and much more. The Consulting Alliance offers strategic counsel and tactical support to businesses, corporations, and nonprofit organizations in the Washington, D.C. area and beyond.
Here we are today in the Podcast Village studios. We've got Jeff Miller, and Jeff, you've got a guest for us today. It's your second guest.
I do,
so
Charlie.
I'm going to let you do the introductions of your illustrious guest, and then we'll get into the rest.
Thank you very much. Always good to see you. Thanks for having us back. Today with us is Dr. Justin Klein, Dr. J.
Dr. J.
Dr. J is a client of mine. We've been working together for about 4 or 5 months now. He's chiropractic, biophysics. He does something called movementality, and I'm going to let him explain all of that because that's beyond my pay range, paid scale. But in coaching, there are a couple of principles that I always adhere to. Thinking outside of the box.
Right.
Considering that there are other ways to do the same thing that you've been doing to get different results. Right. Consider the fact that there may be a different way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And getting really simple sometimes. Instead of making life and the business and systems so complex, to bring it back down to simplicity. Mm-hmm. And that's my way of introducing Dr. J and what he does.
I like that
because
way.
When you hear about it, it's fascinating, and as somebody who's going through it, I can tell you that it also works. So with my pleasure, Dr. J.
Welcome.
Well, thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. And that's really what we try to do, is we try to simplify the human body for people and try to teach people how it works. As a chiropractor, I think that, and to give you a little background, I was a personal trainer, kinesiology student at Maryland, pre-med for a few years.
Great.
And physical therapy itself is movement. That's really, to me, movement equals physical therapy. So from a movement standpoint, what we do in my clinic is teach people what we've called our movementality, which is just a mesh of 2 words, mind, body, connected. It is connected. We all know these things through the yoga principles or wherever you get it. But at the end of the day, people don't take their physical therapy home with them most of the time. This is really over the years of working with people one-on-one, and as a personal trainer and spending an hour with everybody, and then being a physical therapist, chiropractor, spending an hour with everybody. There's really a simpler way. You see a lot of connections between movement, exercise, and physical therapy. So really, why aren't they taking it home with them? Because they think it's too complex, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody really questions maybe what they're doing and how long they have to do it. So at the end of the day, teach them a system of movement that they can take home with them, that they don't have to stress over doing too much or too little. As long as they do some of it, that's just how their body's designed to move.
Yeah, and this movement that you're talking about, which is really quite unique and genius in its simplicity. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because that to me is just fascinating.
So the movementality starts with original strength technique, which is a movement system, a restorative movement system, very new to the world, but it is around the world now. My head coach Colin Cooley and I are the only level 2 trainers right now in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
As far as a restorative movement technique, what I mean is that we talk about pressing reset, and these movements essentially reset the nervous system, the neuromotor developmental patterns that the body's supposed to move in. So if we can continue doing these things, rocking, rolling, crawling, who does these things?
Babies.
Babies do these things, right? Why the heck do you think they do them? So they can.
Because it comes pretty natural.
Right, and it's also reflexive, right? It's automatic, right? They do these types of things to get their head up over their body, right? So in the first place, because we've been sitting in chairs and doing life things our whole, we're just getting banged up however you get injured, or not get injured, but deal with chronic positioning of your body or repetitive stress. We need to tap back into those reflexes first. And then we move on to a system that I was developing. It's called the Super 7, that at the same time as original strength was forming, I was developing this system of movement that looked, like I was saying earlier, similar to how the body's supposed to move, right? So a couple movements, flexion, extension, and rotation for the neck, a few for the thoracic spine, a few for the lower back, and then we teach people how to squat. And that squat, it looks like a rock, like a baby rocking on all fours. Mm-hmm. That's just an upright form of movement. And then beyond that, we teach people self-myofascial stretches, spinal decompression stretches that help to stabilize all the change that we make on the chiropractic biophysics side structurally. So that really would just lead into an understanding of chiropractic biophysics. We can, maybe talk about why the movementality helps that later.
Sure.
So again, I mean, it's just fascinating. You get down on the floor, you get into a crawling position, like I did when I was 8 months old, and you just rock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you say, okay, this is all right. What's going on here exactly? And over a pretty short period of time, you start feeling your body is resetting.
Mm-hmm.
So
and that's because of what we call reflexive stability. And most people aren't really assessing that or addressing that first, and that's really what's missing. I think in the health and fitness world in general, when we feel tight, right, what do you want to do? Stretch, right? Mm-hmm. So who's been stretching every day their whole life, and what's the definition of insanity?
Yeah. Right.
So at the end of the day, what we don't understand is that the body's designed to hold itself together, and we don't have it tied together very well, and that's what this does. Helps to tap into that reflexive stability. Reflexive spasm is what makes us feel tight initially, and then we have to. Those are the two battling each other. Reflexive spasms, muscle spasms that eventually just get tight over time. Brain wants to use as little energy as possible, so over time it's going to say, okay, you know what, you want to sit that way, I'm just going to stick you like that.
I'm going to let you sit that way. Yeah.
And so that's why it's hard to get through it. That's why it's hard to move and continue physical therapy unless you have a system of understanding it. So,
well, I'm absolutely fascinated. I told Jeff I'm trying to get back into a physical fitness routine and go into the gym, and I used to take yoga and I used to do some chiropractic, but it sounds like you've really got, you've pared it down to what really matters the most.
That's what we hope. That's what we hope our patients will take home with them. That's the hard part is knowing whether or not they're actually doing it, and we've got a good system of accountability where we really are checking up on people and making sure they're sticking with the plan. So we can tell if they're not. We just have ways that make it a little easier for us to get people on track.
So do you want people to go home and rock?
Absolutely. Rock and roll all day long.
Yeah.
I remember at least twice.
I remember my brother this was on a table, not in a squatting pose or something like that, but my brother who did a lot of reflexology would put me on the table and then just do a lateral rocking back and forth, take sort of over my my hips and then the top of my shoulders and just push back and forth and sort of synchronize me. And it was an amazing feeling after 10 minutes. It's probably not exactly the same thing, but...
Well, what I do from a chiropractic standpoint is the specialty called chiropractic biophysics.
Okay, tell me about that,
That's a structural corrective or restorative technique. So the specialty has to do with a little bit different adjustments. So patients will be experiencing a little bit more of the drop table and a couple of tools, and there's traction involved. So the whole idea is to understand that we have an ideal curvature of the spine for every person.
Right.
Whether you can get there or not, it depends, to me, in my mind, of their structural care, but also of them moving every day. But the chiropractic biophysics technique begins with that understanding through X-ray findings, and if you can think orthodontia or orthodontics of the spine, that's essentially the idea.
Sure.
A little bit harder. We can't put braces on people and send them home. There are some ways for scoliosis,
but that's not really what we're talking about.
Right. But in this case, there are special chiropractic biophysics techniques to allow that. But but the ways that we practice mostly at Got Your Back is more about taking your homework home with you. And we have dental rolls that are like a cervical or thoracic or lumbar orthotic device to help you restore those curves. And then we also have a little bit more aggressive traction in the office. So,
well, let me ask you a direct question, but hold your thought. I'm just going to, do you do older folks?
Of course.
Because I've got an 88-year-old father who lives one block from your office who looks like a pretzel.
Yeah.
And
if he's game to move, then he's welcome
game.
in our office for sure.
I'm going to talk to him about it.
Absolutely.
So we'll do that offline. Go ahead. Sorry, Jeff.
One of the things that I find fascinating and the kinship and some of the alignment, if you will, businesses go out of alignment all of the time. That's why there are people like me that come in. And it's one thing if you go in and align a business and then you leave a week or two later, and then a week or two later they're out of alignment again. So from my point of view, my methodology as a business coach, business consultant, is making sure that the alignment becomes systemic and becomes foundational. And that's very much what Dr. J is doing in his practice.
That's what it sounds
That's
like.
exactly it too. It's that the people don't really understand their foundations, I think, and we're kind of missing the boat. And reflexive stability from a movement standpoint is that understanding. And just standing, you're never really standing still. So if you're just standing, your body's moving. And the same thing goes for that foundation to understand that your structure has an ideal curvature. There is a way to restore it to an extent. It has everything to do with everybody's cooperation with the process, just like anything else.
Well, let me follow up on that because I'm curious about this too. I know, again, with what I do, I can meet some real resistance, and I can meet that kind of I know syndrome. People not allowing for the possibility to do something differently. Why don't you talk a little bit about how you overcome that with patients who say, well, movementality, crawling like a baby, and what's that all about?
I don't exactly call it the movementality right away. I do start to get people to maybe hear our cultural words and things that we talk about. And we also do like to have, people seeing other patients around because it is different, but at the end of the day, I'm the doctor. You came for my advice, and I've been doing this long enough. I may still look, that's why I keep my beard on, I may still look like
How long have you been doing this?
I've been in movement and fitness for 15 years, chiropractic almost 8.
That's long enough, Jeff.
Yeah.
That's long enough.
I'm creeping up on a decade in practice, so I think that's, getting there. But, people have their own words, their preconceived notions of chiropractic. They're they've been treated before. They've got 8 physical therapists or doctors on their team. So it is not necessarily easy to have those conversations. But, for example, just the word, my chiropractor cracked me here. And think about phraseology, just the ways that we think
really
about things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that right there, there's a crack in their foundation. There's a misunderstanding right there. And just to teach them what that noise is that we're making when we make an adjustment is important, So we try to do our best to teach everybody all that kind of stuff because that's really, to me, it's just common sense because this was what I think I was designed to do. And it's about your nervous system. It's about we all have one. That's the only way we can take control of our lives.
So how does a young man get interested in what you did? What were your origins?
I was an injured high school athlete.
Okay. I wondered because I have 2 high schoolers, so I was hoping that's what you'd say.
I mean, it's good trainers, good coaches are few and far between. The ones that really understand movement, they're really, really rare. And I think that. I was most of my young movement was in the 80s and 90s, and I was overtraining in one direction or the other.
Sure.
So I started with baseball, picked up soccer, had ankle injuries, shoulder injury. The ankle injuries ended my wrestling career. I was supposed to be able to maybe go to state finals and went there on crutches. And, but these kind of things humbled me, I think, at a really young age. So I started learning and exploring movement. I went to a physical therapist, I think, once after that injury, and then I felt like I just knew it and could understand how to teach my body how to move and what I needed to do. So I did it, and I got better quickly. I still had things to learn, of course, but my body was talking to me. I could feel it, and I knew what I was working with.
Well, that's a pretty great answer. We with my twins, we get a lot of groin injuries and a lot of things and I'm always because I don't know what I'm talking about. But when I used to train, Jeff, my coach said 5 minutes, warm up, stretch. And we did that, and now I say that to the kids. They don't get even that instruction at school. warm up and stretch. They're like, Dad, and I'm like, no, you got to do this. That's why you're going to pull a muscle like your groin. So what about walking? A guy who does a lot of walking. Are there any things that can we give a tip or two?
Sure,
Anything
of course.
If I want to walk in a more productive fashion, I walk about a half an hour to an hour every night with my dog, and I've always wondered, well, what can I be doing other than just listening to podcasts on the walk that's good for me? So are there things that we should think about when we're doing recreational, outdoor walking?
Sure. Walking is the ultimate reset. So that's in original strength. We talk about those resets and press reset as much as you can, and walking is a great one. The two main things you need to think about when you're walking are keeping your eyes on the horizon as much as you can.
Okay.
Put your tongue on the roof of your mouth and breathe through your belly, into your belly. So breathing, diaphragmatic breathing is one thing, right?
Sure.
And your eyes are tied to your vestibular system and your ears. And if you start to look around, your head will follow that. And that's what we've lost. Like if you ever look at a baby and they're looking for that toy, they hear something, they're like, their head's going to move with it, right? So everything they don't. We're actually hardwired that way. It's literally something that we have been looking at our phones for so long.
I was going to say, look at how many people are walking and looking at their phones.
It's terrible. It's ruining.
And so that's sort of counter reset.
Extremely counter.
Okay.
I mean, I think of the body.
That's a great point to realize.
Right. As the nervous system is how I think of it first. And if you're not connecting one side to the other, and your hemispheres aren't talking to each other very well, it shows in your movement, and you can take control of that and move right. So a cross crawl, right, which is just basically standing, you can touch the other knee, so keeping your eyes on the horizon, breathing, and that's just one of the big 5 resets.
That is fascinating.
And Charlie, we've discussed on previous podcasts, again, from my perspective, we talk about what happens when that 1 and 2 and 3-year-old, as they become socialized and they're about to go into school, they're told, now listen, you're about to go into school. This is about learning, not about having fun. And there's, which in and of itself is this crazy message, right? So learning's not fun.
It's not a good message at all.
Not a good message, and we're paying the price as a society and as a world for it. But again, it's the connection between that baby who's almost perfect in its development, and then this need to say, well, no, now you've got to change the way you sit, change the way you talk, change the way you smile, change the way you learn. And it's instead of there being an ongoing mindfulness, that just gets broken down, and it's one of the reasons why I so much appreciate what Dr. J is doing, because there's a symmetry there.
There's a real symmetry, and I hadn't realized it when you mentioned that to me before we started, but it is quite elegant, what you've got there, and very exciting. I have to inform you that you're probably going to see me soon because I work in the building next to you in Spring Valley.
4910.
So, I work in 4910. So I would love to come and buy a sandwich sometime at Wagshall's.
Any day. I'm there
or maybe
too often.
Maybe I can get in, and maybe I can get my dad in, who would probably benefit a great deal. He does some things, but he's very open. He's always been open to chiropractor. In the last couple of years, he's just gone, that. It's
we want to catch those structures before that starts to happen.
Well, we'll do what we can.
Let's do what we can. Get them on the floor, man. We'll be rolling.
This is tremendous. I think that the comparisons, as you just mentioned, Jeff, are really exciting because they're clear and it just makes perfect sense. I'll tell you my one baby rocking story. So I have twins, and I can cut this out later, Betsy, and or not. We'll see if she's listening.
It's live right now, so it's okay. We got it somewhere.
So I have boy-girl twins, Justin, and my son, when he was little and they were crawling, and he would gut his way and figure out how to sit up and haul himself up, and my daughter Isabel would just watch. And she would think and watch. And then later, she performed this move where she simply turned over, straightened her arms out, and got up. She didn't do all the effort. She watched and she just did it completely with zero effort. But he was doing it the army way and getting up. And she just turned over, flipped around, and stood up. That's just great.
That's a great story, and something similar. I think that's a guy-girl thing. That's a male-female.
That's what we thought as parents.
So about 20 years ago, I went to take with a buddy of mine kayaking lessons in some indoor pool up in D.C. And I'm a pretty athletic guy, so I'm in this kayak and just learning how to maneuver with it. And you got to roll over, right? So I roll over, and for the life of me, I'm up 3/4, boom, back under. Up 3/4, boom, back under. Can't do this. Meanwhile, there's this woman next to me who's about 18, and she's just going, boop, doop. And it's that male macho thing of thinking, I'm going to force my way through.
I've got to force my way.
As opposed to women who are smarter at times.
Well, it's wonderful connecting that to what Justin's doing. There's so many things in life that you find you don't have to do the hard way. Right. I used to windsurf, and you want to lift the sail up when it's full of water, and you want to pull it up. Well, it's exactly the wrong thing. That's how you yank your back. You just let the water slide off, and you let your weight do the work for you. So and so I compare that to the babies and the instinctive knowledge that we need to reset.
And building on that, we're all familiar with Chinese handcuffs.
Yeah.
Put your fingers in. And as business owners, there's so many of us who are walking around with their fingers in Chinese handcuffs.
Oh, that's good.
So again, this concept of working hard but working smart.
Yeah.
That's right.
Keeping it simple for the most part, and not fighting yourself.
And just not taking it too seriously in general, I think, is also great. A great philosophy, because we've got a lot of gyms out there, a lot of different concepts out there where we're thinking a lot about things. Yeah. And if we just feel a little bit more and just kind of get deeper into your movement, or into your thought process or whatever you need to get into,
right?
Because our body's designed like not to feel pain. I don't think that many of us want to feel pain, and I don't think that our brain wants us. It's telling us that for a reason. Right. And that's one of the reason we have any kind of ache or pain is for a need for help, a cry for help. So, and in general, we could talk all day long about I'm sure the business pains that Jeff sees every day, and the physical pains that we see, and emotional pains that we all see every day. And, we're trying to overcompensate. It's ego. It's human. It's nature.
It is. And you know what's funny about that? I want to go back to stretching real quick, and I know we're up against the end of it, but and I was counseling my daughter who had a minor groin pull, as I mentioned, I think, and I said, when you start getting better, stretch a little, but don't stretch into the pain, because I'd been told, and you can tell me if that's correct or not.
Absolutely.
But I said, we often think we're supposed to stretch into the pain and then stretch a little more, and I said, no. Stretch up to that and then stop. Don't do it when it hurts. And so tell me, was that the right advice?
I know people that have been going to the gym for months, maybe years, 45 minutes early to stretch one hip. Again, back to that definition of insanity. The bottom line is that you should not move into pain, right?
And that's what
pain's there for a reason, right? So in the original strength technique, and our move mentality is not to move into pain. It's just let that joint, for example, stabilize. So if it's a groin, let them look up the video for the hip matrix. Got Your Back Total Health on YouTube.
Okay.
That's a great one. It's a progressive one.
I will.
They're a bit of those videos are all just tutorials, kind of teasers in a way to give an understanding of the movement, but also a reference for a lot of people.
Fantastic.
Those are good. Yeah. But it's all about that understanding, of not moving into pain too much,
But I think it's that mentality that you're fighting is what you're saying. We want to make it complex. So pain hurts. It's probably good for me.
Well,
and we've got ourselves screwed in backwards now.
Right.
So, and I said, no, honey. Get up to that point, but don't go into that place. And she understood, and she got better much faster than my son, who probably stretched right into that groin pain and was out for a season.
So one of the fun facts here, I'll let you say it, but I'll set it up. So we started working together in the summer, and one day I walk into the studio, and there's this guy rolling around on the floor who looked like I knew him, looked quite athletic. And it was
who?
A patient of yours.
Oh, Denard Span. It was actually So last summer when working through his injuries and with the Nats and
wow.
Hey, he got really reflexively strong in just a few weeks. Yeah, that was a pretty awesome shock. Eh?
Yeah.
He's a Mets fan, though. So,
Yeah, let's go Mets, as I usually say.
Yeah, it's usually the end of the show. He says, "Let's go Mets."
If I were the Nats, maybe I shouldn't say this on the air. I don't know. If
No, you can say it.
Well, we can always cut it.
I wouldn't have let him go. But I think he's. Hopefully, the Mets don't pick him up and smack
I don't know
the Nats
why.
all over.
Yeah,
Well, we'll bring you over to the other
We
side.
can go there. Yeah.
Wait a minute, I'm a Nats
I don't know
fan.
about that. That won't be happening.
I got to go home team here, Jeff.
We're gonna.
Oh, okay.
Nats all day long, baby.
You got your Nats. I got my Caps cup over here. It's and unfortunately, I still am a Redskins fan. So we'll leave that on the table for now. They got a game coming up that I can't imagine they'll win, but here let's hope they do.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, thank you so much. I'll see you in Spring Valley, and Jeff, thank you so much for bringing Justin
pleasure.
in today.
Justin,
Thanks
thanks for dropping by. Why don't you give
Thanks
us your
for having
website?
us.
Yeah, please.
The website's www.gotyourbacktotalhealth.com.
Okay.
Same for our Facebook page. Twitter is just /GotYourBackDC.
Okay.
At any of those websites.
You can find all those links on the page, which I found before you got here. He's got Pinterest, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
all
Sorry,
that.
yeah, and all the above. And we'll
Instagram. Starting on Instagram.
I saw that.
And
I saw
Meerkat
that.
and Periscope. So
Yeah.
come next year, we're actually starting small group training classes and VIP membership programs, and we'll be actually holding weekly workshops, clinics.
Okay.
That will be live streaming on Meerkat. We'll be hooked up to Wi-Fi, guys. Sorry, I'm not hooked up to Wi-Fi. There's no picture half the time.
Whoa.
And the lights just went out in here. Did we lose our feed? No.
No,
Okay.
it's the cardboard in the
But
way.
we
of
will be
it.
live streaming those on Saturdays at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 o'clock.
Fantastic.
Pacific.
Okay. We'll try and retweet that when you get started, and
great.
maybe we'll have you sit in on our blab once in a while, too. We
Any
do
day, give me
my
a call.
friends and I
I'd
do a
love
weekly
it. Yeah,
blab.
got it right there on the.
Okay,
on the
excellent. Well,
Cool.
thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you,
Charlie, always a pleasure.
I'm afraid we're going to have to take next Friday off.
You don't want to spend Christmas with me.
Well, no. That's it from Podcast Village. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Justin Klein, Dr. J. Straight from the ABA.
Here we are in the studio in Podcast Village.
You know that Betsy's going to cut that out, right?
Hi, Betsy. I'm going to leave that in just for her.
Excellent.
No, I will not. Okay, pause.